Hello, welcome to the video. I want to show you a little London miniature that caught my eye. I'm sure that there are many London system players that are watching my channel because well, I like the London system myself. Plenty of videos on the London system on my channel. And this was played back in 2017. The white piece is Alex Bachmann, a grandmaster rated about 2600, and well, he's outrating his opponent considerably, but he's still very strong, 2248. Now, white opened up with d4 here, d5 by black, and bishop f4. And I tend to want to play the London system myself with this move or d4, d5. If d4 knight f6, I tend to go for just main lines with c4. And that's because I'm not entirely happy about all the systems that I want to play against a King's Indian type setup. So d4, d5, bishop f4. So I'm quite happy to play the London here. So this is relevant to my repertoire. e3, e6, knight to f3. And generally when black wants to challenge London, he either goes with the bishop to d6 or he plays a quick queen b6 in some lines. But here black plays bishop e7. And this I always found a little bit passive because in my opinion white gets kind of all he wants from the opening, easy development and no particular problems to deal with. And you kind of get this pure kind of London setup, if you will, after knight b to d2, black castle, bishop d3, c5 and c3. And you know, this is something that most people that play the London know. The knights covering each other, we have this nice pawn triangle and the bishops are out. Black continued here with knight to c6. And now h3, and this is kind of the last move to set up the pure London system. And this is usually played to give the bishop a retreat square here on h2. But sometimes white waits till the bishop is committed to e7, as it is in this game, because if the bishop is landing on d6, we want to be able to pull this bishop back to g3 and take back with the h-pawn. And sometimes black even plays bishop e7 and bishop d6. Maybe it's something he could do in this position. Since black isn't in any way ready to play e5 and challenge for the e5 square, which is the usual thing that black tries to do in these lines. But in this game black went a different route. He closed the queenside with c4, released all the tension in the center. And I think this approach is not the greatest for black, because he has to survive most likely a big attack. And in this game that's what happened. b5, white played a3 just to slow black down on the queen side. There's no b4, and after a5 we can continue with e4 because there's no b4. We have this rook opposing this one, so if b4 we just take the pawn. So black has to spend a move to protect the rook, but I think he should have taken on e4 first. I still think white is slightly better, but black has a solid position, so he has to take on e4. In the game he gave white kind of a free hand with e5, because now we have the strong center, and this bishop is just loving this central setup. Knight d8 was played. Knight to d7 could also be played, but now h4. White does lose a tempo, h3, h4, but we haven't castled. We want to introduce the h rook into the attack. And black already has a difficult situation. He has to defend with some ugly pawn moves, either h5, g6 or h6. Some of these moves, but not the move he played in the game, which is f6. And now white can put an end to this game as he did. Now this works whether the knight is on e8 or d7. Now this is something you should know as a London player, an important tactic, and it's to play knight g5. I think bishop takes h7 works as well. In many cases it will transpose. In the game the knight was taken, and now bishop takes h7. And there's simply no choice for black. In the game he took the bishop, but you know, if he tries to run, there's simply no running. Queen h5 and this mate next move, and king h8 doesn't help either. Here and then bishop check, and then we mate. So he took the bishop, but hg, and now the rook is quite happy that we haven't castled. It entered the game here without moving. Now if the king goes to g8, there's another tactic we should know. In the game king g6 was played, but an important tactic if king here, and that is to play rook here check, because we bring the queen in with tempo, queen h5 check, and then g6, and there's no escaping this, especially because this square is not available. So if we move the rook, it's going to be mate on h8. So you see that this square is not available. So it's simply checkmate at the g6. We can try to throw this one in, but it doesn't matter. We can simply take it, and then h7 is going to be mate. So we try to run king g6, but again, to no avail. Queen h5 check, king f5, and well, I guess there are many ways to win here. Bachmann went with a forcing move, queen h3. Now if the bishop is taken, it's made in a few moves. Black went back here, but if he takes the bishop, I guess g3 and then queen h5 should be sufficient. But in the game he went king g6 and resigned after queen to h7. Note that we would have to choose another way to win if the knight was on d7, which he could have played on an earlier move. But here with the knight on e8, this line works because king f7, g6 is mate. In fact, after queen h7, black resigned. But just to demonstrate, we have to be careful. If the knight was on d7, king e8, and the game goes on. But there are other ways to win instead of queen h3 here. Like bishop e3 is probably strong. Simply intending g4 with mate. So a nice miniature, and I think some important tactics that you should know if you play the London system. If black plays quite passively like this with bishop e7 and it gives you all the center, you tend to get a very strong kingside attack, and I think this game demonstrated some themes that you should know and should help you in your games, in your London games. So good luck. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.